So we're going to be reviewing the kettlebell swing. When you are moving a kettlebell, especially since we're moving weight with momentum, we want to be able to maintain a nice rigid torso versus having our torso go through position changes as you're going through the movement. So that's going to require a hip hinge where we're hinging from the hips, but instead of just reaching here, we want to keep our spine stiff from our neck all the way to our tailbone. So what that's going to mean is as my hips start to go back, my chest is going to hinge with me, right? So I start this by being able to soft bend through the knees, so that way I can still absorb and stay athletic here versus locked out and hinging, okay? Then it becomes too much on the knees, you can hyperextend. So soft bend here, right? Then we're gonna hinge to the hips. You wanna go just a little bit, so just enough to where the bell is gonna stay between the thighs and the knees, and it's not gonna go below. If I'm going below, then I'm creating a lot of pressure on my low back to have to extend back up. So from here, I can use mainly my hips by driving my feet through the floor and squeezing my glutes back up to the center, okay? Now the glutes aren't the only thing you wanna squeeze. By maintaining your braced spine, that also means that your core, which wraps all the way around, is maintaining the same brace. So that way we don't extend the hips too far to the front. Your core and your brace here is gonna prevent that. So if you're extending and your hips are going in front of you, that tells me you're not engaging your core throughout your movement as well. All right, so to example here, deadlift up. I have just a soft bend in my knees. You're gonna extend from the hips. Again, my chest is gonna come with me, and then I'm gonna reach, right? So I'm staying braced through my abs, moving from my hips. And as I'm starting to extend the hips, I'm thinking about driving my feet through the floor and standing up tall, okay? Now, the second thing to note with your kettlebell swings is your neck position. What can help with that brace here? If I'm looking up like this, sometimes we have a tendency to lift the rib cage up because it's going to follow my gaze. If I'm pulling the kettlebell down, I want to think about trying to keep my eyes on the bell, so that way as I'm coming down, which is when you're more than likely going to work on keeping your chest lifted, which has been a cue for a very long time, we're going to lose that brace that's here in our spine. So as the bell is coming down and we need to reabsorb with the hips and the knees, you're going to follow your gaze with your bell, and notice that's going to allow me to keep my neck in line with the rest of my spine, and I'm going to be able to keep my rib cage down versus having my eyes up and rib cage slightly lifted. Even just a little bit can go through a big change. That's still a change in shape on your spine with momentum and with weight. It might not necessarily cause anything initially, but over time can start to tweak that part of the spine. So keeping that neck nice in line with the rest, an example will look like this. Deadlift up. I have my soft bend in the knees. I initiate from my hips, allowing my torso to go with me, right? My gaze is just keeping this in my peripherals. I don't need to look at it because again, that's gonna go the opposite direction that I want. I'm gonna keep my peripherals to where I can see the kettlebell, but I can also just kind of keep my neck nice and straight, looking directly or looking slightly in front, right? So I swing between the thighs, not going too low, drive through the floor, extend the hips, but keep my abs tight. Pull it down, and I can continue like so, letting my gaze guide with that motion so that all of the focus is literally happening right here, exactly where we want it for that kettlebell swing.